Well, I know that your YouTube stream is probably down, and that's really unfortunate, and I'm not super jazzed about that, but I guess that's what happens when you watch content on YouTube. They do not generally like that, for reasons, I guess. That all said, I have some terrifying news to show you, and some good news to show you, and depending on who you are, you probably have a opinion on which one is which. One of the news is that there is a Christian nationalist settlement that is being put up, and we are going to be talking about that. That's one of the newses, and jury's out on which one that is. The other one of the newses is that I am now certified with provisionally certified with the Creator Accountability Network. And I have a statement that I'm supposed to read in order to do all that fun stuff. I'm excited to announce that I've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. I joined because I care about the safety and well-being of my community members. If you feel my behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help me make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work, so if you have the skills and you think you would be helpful, or the time and a desire to help, please visit their website and find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. There, that is the bit that I had to read, and if I were to very, very briefly give a thing, I do wish we could have put a bit of that into our own words, but either way, that is my one thing that I have to say about that, and I will be provisionally credentialed for about 90 days here. Jump Point says, just make sure not to get canned, Suris. I mean, oh, god dang it, I see what you did there. Anyway, the reason I wanted to join that particular org is we've had a handful of content creators in various spaces abuse their powers and influence in ways that I'm not super comfortable with. And there may have been times where I've done the same thing, either without knowing or who knows. Either way, I think it makes more sense to not go with the mob justice way of handling things, instead going with a method that actually has a step-by-step process if a mistake ends up happening. With how politically charged things have been, more often than not, it is more likely that more of us are going to engage in behaviors that we may look back on less than fondly in a couple years' time. Either way, hopefully being with CAN will allow me to have that little road there just in case something does happen. I'm hoping it never does, but everybody hopes that they never become a monster in the process of fighting monsters. So, Tyrannobastard says, someone draw slime Suris in a tin can. Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about today's subject. Again, this is the other news. Which one is terrifying and which one is great is entirely up to you. Men behind the Tennessee Christian Nationalist settlement said, this country belongs to Jesus, not the Jews. Andrew Isker compares Jews to foster children who cannot be trusted with the family credit card. They said that Jews have largely operated at odds with the old American way of life. First of all, just gonna say this right now, even mentioning the concept, Naki Bree, I swear to God, I'm gonna do things that's gonna make the Creator Accountability Network hate me because you've decided to drop enough channel points to make me say a fucking ooh. I am gonna do a war crime. Bark! Anyway. Now I'm frustrated. Now I'm derailed. There we go. That was what I was going to say. It's strange to me hearing the concept of a family credit card. How does your family have enough money ever in the history of ever to have a family credit card? What the fuck is this concept? Also, Axo, thank you for redeeming your points for an Owo. And Tyrannobastard, thank you for redeeming your points for an Arara. You fucking DJ. Yeah, I live in Georgia. I don't know why I think I'm Canadian. But I really cannot stress this. I think I'm focusing on the wrong part of this. But a family credit card makes 0 sense to me. Like, as a concept, I don't know what kind of family has enough wealth to afford something like that. Gainesboro, Tennessee, WTVF here in a small red brick office building purchased by the developers, trying to build a Christian nationalist community in rural Jackson County. 2 men are also attempting to build a right-wing podcasting business. Well, you just gave them a giant platform, and I guess I'm doing the same thing. As News Channel 5 previously revealed, Pastor Andrew Isker and his sidekick C.J. Engel want to repeal the 20th century. They want to go back to America as it existed before the civil rights movement. So you want the black people enslaved. Got it. Or at the very least, you want them separate and maybe not even equal. They want to go back to America as it existed before the civil rights movement. They want to take away the rights of women to vote. Yeah, that checks out. And they are prepared to accept a Protestant dictator to achieve their goals. Oh, boy. Rain Dog says family credit card is one of those phrases where Americans out-American themselves to the rest of the world. I don't know what that even means. But a recent guest on their Contra Mundum podcast, which they bill as the #1 Christian nationalist podcast in the world, also highlights their willingness to flirt with ideas that critics call anti-Semitic and with characters who engage in Holocaust denial. Isker himself believes the Jews should be treated as second-class citizen. As he puts it, this country belongs to Jesus. We deny accusations. Sorry. It is in his words. We deny accusations of anti-Semitism and see them as evidence that there is no actual story here. No. If we accuse you of anti-Semitism, that's evidence that you've done something that made us accuse you of anti-Semitism. Whether or not that's not actually evidence of anti-Semitism, but it is evidence that there was a reason behind it, illegitimate or legitimate. Who knows? We say this is merely an obsession of an activist journalist in the midst of legacy media's decline. Well, legacy media is declining, but that doesn't mean that if you're accused of anti-Semitism, you didn't do an anti-Semitism. Still, critics say that the recent podcast and other public pronouncements by the pair suggest otherwise. Today, we will be talking about one of the great American heroes of the 20th century, Charles Lindbergh. Engel declared on the beginning of a recent show that launched a subscription service for their Contra Mundum podcast. A part of the America First movement of the 1930s, the famed aviator opposed U.S. entry into Europe's war against Adolf Hitler. Lindbergh faced public backlash after he blamed Jews and what he saw as a Jewish-controlled media for pushing the nation into war. Isker and Engel's guest defended Lindbergh, American technology entrepreneur Ron Unz, who runs a controversial website that publishes often vile white supremacist and anti-Semitic screeds, including articles mocking the murder of millions of Jews at the hand of Nazis. Okay, so he's just a villain. He's literally just a Saturday morning cartoon villain. One article argues that the Holocaust narrative must be turned on its head. Says, instead of the world apologizing to Jews for not having done enough to prevent the evils of Nazism, it is Jews that need to apologize to the world. Unz, who has tried to dismiss accusations of anti-Semitism by arguing that he is a Jew. You can be anti-black and black. You can be anti-trans and be Blair White. He says that his website is an intellectual pursuit. We try to provide a convenient venue for views that are excluded. Maybe that view is excluded for a reason. Important, controversial views that are excluded from the mainstream media. Aria Tuckman, director of the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism, has been tracking Ron Unz's work for years. Says Ron Unz is an idea man, and unfortunately the vast majority of his ideas are anti-Semitic, and the vast majority of the people who he platforms share many of those anti-Semitic ideas. Yeah, go figure. You are an anti-Semite, and you have anti-Semites around you, and therefore you, I don't know, If you quack like a duck and look like a duck and smell like a duck, then maybe you live in the barn. I only say that because my parents had ducks and they actually were kept in the barn at night. Anyway. In fact, near the end of the podcast interview, Isker spoke glowingly of a series of essays authored by Unz that he calls American Pravda, or Pravda. Unz uses those essays to push debunked ideas such as the claims that, per capita, Jews were the greatest mass murderers of the 20th century, and religious Jews apparently pray to Satan almost as readily as they pray to God. He even endorses the notorious Christian superstition that Jews once kidnapped small Christian children in order to drain their blood for use in various magic rituals. Oh, it's QAnon! Oh my god, that's so cute! That's so cute. This is where the QAnon stuff originated. It's an old anti-Semitic trope that Jews drain children of their blood. And so QAnon, as a concept, latches onto this and uses it for the adrenochrome conspiracy. Says essentially they are promoting him as a source of truth, as a trusted source of opinions about historical issues. And this is the person who has denied the Holocaust and has cast the history of the world as one in which the Jewish people are the villains. In their statement to the News Channel 5, the podcaster said, "From time to time, we have guests on our podcasts that we think will be interesting to our audience. We don't share all their views on every topic." Okay, that's entirely fair. Why do you think anti-Semitic views would be interesting to your audience? That's the real head-scratcher here. Zero Life King goes, "I'm just a little anti-Semite. Just a little guy. I just want a little bit of the Jews to die horribly. Just a little guy with little itty-bitty opinions." Superstorm, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an you fucking degen. Terran Ambassador 2. You're a fucking degen. And Axo, thank you for redeeming your points for an OL. I think I got those when they happened. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Touchman said Isker and Engel's decision to give Unz a platform speaks volumes about them. I believe it says quite a bit about the willingness of these people to essentially raise up an anti-Semite and essentially create an on-ramp for their viewers to engage further with Mr. Unz and his ideas. While Isker and Engel pointed to Unz's claims to be a Jew, Tuchman said it's a pathetic and laughable defense that anti-Semites usually use when they are called out. Still, for Isker and Engel, flirtations with such figures are nothing new. In 2023, their podcast featured controversial guest Peter Quinones, who views Adolf Hitler as the victim of World War II. No, Adolf Hitler was a victim of Adolf Hitler, and he was a great shot, too. I mean, damn, he got Hitler and won. Then, of course, there's a quote from Engel. The Jews as a collective have largely operated at odds with the old American way of life, rooted as it is in European Christendom. How? How have they... How? In 2023, Engels faced criticism online for liking a meme featuring the words, "The more you notice," and the Star of David, which critics perceived as an allusion to common anti-Semitic notion that one can discover the evil influence of Jews by noticing patterns of behavior by people of Jewish descent. Yeah, it's a common thing of fascists to say the combination of our enemy is so weak that we can downtrod them, but they're so powerful, their influence is everywhere. They've been doing it against trans people, and they've been doing it against people in Gaza recently, because, you know, history is a comedy of errors. Let's see here. What else is in here? Said, unfortunately, whether it's in Nazi Germany or whether it's in 1930s Boston, we have seen this alliance before, said Bradley Onishi, a religious scholar and author of Preparing for War, The Extremist History of White Christian Nationalism and What Comes Next. Onishi has examined the work of Isker and Engel as part of a book he is now writing. He says they're brash, they're audiences, and they're audacious, and because of that, they're making a big splash, said Onishi, who hosts a podcast called Straight White American Jesus. For example, in a recent podcast series with far-right pastor Joel Webbin, Isker argued that Jews who rejected Christ have no right to claim to be Jews. What? How does that work? That Jesus Christ isn't the God of the Jews. Like, in their religion, the Messiah hasn't come yet. And the only difference between their religion and your religion is they disagree with each other on that. Like, that's the big takeaway there. They get to claim to be Jews instead of Christians specifically because they, don't take Christ as their Messiah. Jews in the biblical sense, right? They don't exist today anymore, right? It's only Christians and non-Christians, he said. What the fuck? What the fuck kind of a statement is that? Yes, technically there's only Christians and non-Christians, in the same way there's only whites and non-whites, and there's blacks and non-blacks, and Asians and non-Asians, and yeah, it's technically a statement that means nothing at all. Lenari says, white is a social construct, so is religion. Isker also suggested that the people who now call themselves Jews are responsible for many of the evils in the world. Yeah, people who call themselves Christians are also responsible, and pagans are also responsible, and atheists are also responsible. It's called being human. We do stupid shit. Then he says, some groups do worse stuff than other groups, he continued. Webbin agreed, and Isker shot back, it's a fact, right? They argued that Jews should not be treated as full-fledged Americans, rejecting the notion that the United States was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. To use the phrase Judeo-Christian, you might as well put a coexist bumper sticker on your car. I mean, yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with people being of a religion. You can be Christian and be pagan, and it doesn't matter. We're all working class fucking people who should have similar goals. It says it's like having a family, and you have foster children in your family, as her continued. You wouldn't even give your own children the credit card for the family budget, but you're definitely not giving it to the foster. He'll just take the credit card and do whatever you, just take the credit card and do whatever you want. Again, the concept of a family credit card makes no fucking sense to me. Why would you hand the family credit card to a child? 2, why are we doing this hierarchy of children thing? In a 2023 podcast posted on YouTube, Isker suggested judging Jews based on the worst acts of Jewish individuals, dismissing the contributions that Jews have made to American society, although he takes the opposite position about people from his own ethnic background. Yay. In their written statement, Isker and Engel said that Andrew follows the historical Protestant theological tradition, which holds that Christ is the true Israel, and that, like all other peoples, Jews are both called and welcome to the Christian faith. Yeah, but what if they don't want to be Christians? Like, it's okay for us to coexist. Like, it's okay for us to live in a world that has pagans and atheists and Christians and Jewish people and Muslims. It's okay for us all to be in the same country. We all have tons of opinions, we all have tons of experiences, and we bring those all to the table, and we enrich the country when we do so. Says, unfortunately, we've seen this theology in the past, and it's KKK theology. Such attitudes, Onishi said, help fuel anti-Semitism and violence against Jewish people in the last century, and inspired violent attacks on Jews in more recent time. So when I hear Engel and Isker talking about there are no more Jews, and there is no more need for the Jews, and Jesus was the last one, which doesn't even make any fucking sense, says I unfortunately hear the echoes of that theology, not only in Christian history, but also in American history. News Channel 5 noted that Isker and Webben had argued that their position does not mean that they would abuse Jewish members of society. But you are. Like, you... Okay, so... just to say this right now, I will, as not a coward, say that if you have this kind of rhetoric and you are willing to use it so flippantly, then your rhetoric will inadvertently cause the harm of Jewish people. So the end result of that is going to be the abuse of Jews. I'm sorry. That is just how that's gonna go. And there's no real way around that. That is just the reality of the situation. You end up saying anti-Semitic things. You convince people to be anti-Semitic like yourself. And then those people within that group, there's somebody in there who is willing to engage in stochastic violence. That's all it is. Stargazer says, they're saying I want them to hurt, but I won't hurt them. Correct. That is what that is. Oh, yeah, nope. I just checked on YouTube. We did get hit. We had a community guidelines hit specifically because of the John Oliver thing. Guess we shouldn't have critiqued his content. Oops. Oh, well. Whatever. It's not to say anything disparaging about John Oliver. That's an HBO thing more than anything. So it's hard to say in one breath that we don't want to treat somebody badly, and in the other breath say you don't deserve a seat at the table. If I'm setting the table for Christmas dinner and I say that, and I say to everyone, I don't want to treat anyone here poorly, but you and this group are going to sit with me at the table, and we're going to enjoy our dinner, and you and that group are going to sit on the floor and unfortunately not be able to participate, I think that would be considered treating one of the groups of the members badly. Also, Cup of Cocoa, thank you so much for the raid. How are you doing? I don't think I have seen you in a very, very long time. How is it going? How are you doing? Unfortunately, we are covering very, very shitty, like nightmarishly shitty opinions on the internet. But how was your stream? Hopefully you had a decent one. Again, I haven't seen you in a decently long while. It has been a bit. All right. Let's continue. Says, it appears we're at a moment where it's increasingly societally acceptable to question the rights of Jewish people to fully participate in American society, which is terrifying. That's terrifying, right? Wild Nick says it's similar in mindset to the erasure of trans people. You can't document harm towards a group of people if you claim that group of people don't exist. Yeah, that's entirely fair. I guess that's why somebody could say they're not anti-Semitic. They would say they're not anti-Semitic because Jewish people don't exist. Like, I've heard this one as well, right? I heard this one years ago from the atheist community where there was a rising sentiment that they couldn't be Islamophobic because Islamophobia doesn't exist. Like, come on. The words mean something. Then below they've got the full statement from both of them, and that's about it. Everything else here seems to be small updates from there. Jesus. An exclusive News Channel 5 investigation has discovered that those Christian nationalists have set their sights on a remote Middle Tennessee county, hoping to attract hundreds, even thousands of like-minded people from across the country as part of efforts, in the words of one activist, to radicalize Main Street. That's not terrifying. That's not scary. That's not absolutely horrid. I'm lying. It's all of those things. It is every one of those things. All of those things are scary. Podcaster CJ Engel thinks I'm part of a grand conspiracy, twisting his words of the views of Christian nationalist partner Andrew Isker, apparently taking orders from what he calls the American regime. Oh my god. Lenari says, I say this as an evidence. Don't we pride as an atheist, don't we pride ourselves on logic and evidence usually? No, actually. So, technically, atheists don't pride themselves on anything. The atheist community on the internet as a thing says that it does, but that doesn't mean that that's like a core tenet of it. It's just, what is your opinion on the God question? And if the opinion is no, then yeah, that's about where you sit. Like that's as far as it goes. The atheist community at large usually tends to value humanism, usually tends to value logic, usually tends to value these things, or at least claims to value these things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they always do. Again, none of it's actually a core tenet of atheism. There are no core tenets of atheism. That's kind of what makes it atheism, is that it lacks all baggage, but that means it lacks good baggage as well. Paige says, those folks from the article are going to frick around and find out if they try to lay a finger on any community. I guess we'll see. But no, that's terrifying news. Dijade, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an OWL. I appreciate it. Thank you for being on the right side of history, not like those filthy other word users. Anyway, Hellbound Hillbilly says, yes, all of the Christian nationalists together in one town. Ha 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 ha. Separate issue. How feasible is a Simpson-style glass dome large enough to enclose a small town in Tennessee? Jeez. Axo says, this is why I get a bad feeling around atheists, because there's a difference between atheism and anti-theism, but anti-theists call themselves atheists sometimes, and I don't want to get bashed for mentioning moon water or my altar. So here's the thing. You're going to get bashed for that by atheists, but you're also going to get bashed by that by Christians. Like, I used to consider myself an anti-theist, and then I largely dropped the term because even when you view it as anti-harm, you're still thinking that the harm is coming from one place exclusively. I'm not super comfortable with the term anymore, because if that term does not specifically mean wanting there to be no people of a theistic faith, then I feel like there's a different term that needs to be used completely. But there are anti-theists who do not believe that, and I considered myself an anti-theist who did not believe that for the longest time. So you're gonna run the gamut. I say this with all the love I can muster in the world, Axo. You are gonna encounter people of all shapes and sizes across the world all the time. They can be of any faith. Hell, you may even find a pagan who ends up making fun of that altar as well, because they happen to be of a particular branch or variety that thinks that what you're doing is mumbo-jumbo nonsense. It just depends on who you're talking to. Safe people are the people who we discover are safe people. We don't profile too terribly much. It doesn't do us too much good. That said, let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. That's about all I can do on this one. There's not a call to action here because there's not much to actually protest or fight against. It's just a bunch of idiots who are trying to set something up. Though if you happen to be in Tennessee when these people are holding a rally or something, then maybe the actionable thing is setting up a counter-protest. That is an option that you have access to, and you can even get it set up on the big list of protests. That's an option you've got. Throwing that out there, if that is what you want to do. That said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie-chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.